The NHL season is in full swing, and around the 20-game mark, we're starting to see who the real winners and losers are so far. Some players and teams have caught us by surprise, while others are doing exactly what we expect. So let's break down the tactics and storylines for the top 5 real winners and losers of the NHL season so far. Kicking us off at the number 5 slot for the winners is going to be the Carolina Hurricanes. The story coming into the season were that these guys were going to regress due to all the subtractions on their back end. However, outside of the Florida Panthers, I think the Hurricanes look like the most deadly team in the East. And at the core of all of it is our boy Marty Necas. Slim Shady is off to a red-hot start to the season as he's got 30 points in 17 games. But what exactly is he doing right now to have success? Well, he has become a weapon off the rush. If you haven't seen Marty Necas skate at full speed, it is not a delightful sight for any defender. Combine that with a 6'3" frame and a ton of skill, he's got all the tools to take over. But what's elevated his game early on is his ability to slow down. And while that might seem counterintuitive, changing your speed while attacking on the rush can create all kinds of different looks. Take this play here. Necas gets the puck into the middle and has a 3-on-2 brewing, and he takes advantage of the gap that Philly gives him. Instead of driving, he cuts into the middle with a slight speed change, and then the niftiness comes out as he passes under the defender's triangle once he tries to go stick on puck. The finish is just the cherry on top, but none of it happens without the speed change. And if we go back on the beginning of that play, it also doesn't happen without a strong first touch. Great players take awkward pucks on their first touch and put it into a spot where they can make a play instantly. Necas is doing this on the regular right now, and it's allowing him to extend plays and put himself in dangerous areas of the ice quickly. All of it's coming together for Slim Shady, and it has the Hurricanes in a fantastic spot. Defensively, they still remain one of the top teams in the league despite quite a bit of turnover. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty, and in our loser spot for number 5, it's going to be the Boston Bruins. Now this one may be controversial considering they're still clinging on to a playoff spot by the time this video is being made. And funny enough, as I'm recording, Boston fires head coach Jim Montgomery due to their slow start. Although he had a ridiculous winning percentage with the team in his short span, Boston felt the need to make a change. And here's why. They have a minus 21 goal differential, and 5-on-5, they stink. They can't score as they rank 31st in the league in terms of goals for, and they just got booed off the ice after a 5-1 spanking at the hands of the Blue Jackets. As a whole, they look flat out disjointed, and it all starts with their special teams. Boston's power play is dead last in the NHL. And since the retirement of Patrice Bergeron, they have had to rely heavily on the skill of Marchand and Pastrnak. With a 1-3-1 formation, Marchand and Pasta usually occupy the flanks, but it's simply become stagnant. The 1-3-1 is standard in the NHL, but the best power plays adjust based on what killers are giving them. Both the Jets and Devils have great power plays this year using the 1-3-1, but they aren't married to that formation if a play isn't available. Sometimes they move to a 2-3 and spread out to get different looks, or they have the bumper constantly moving between being another body in front and getting open in the slot. If you watch Boston, they want to get the puck down low to Marchand and look for that pass to the bumper to Lindholm, or of course the cross-ice look to Pastrnak. But with limited movement, it's simply become too predictable. The result is the worst power play in the league. Now, when even strength, the team is also struggling. Having the biggest and heaviest D-core in the league has made defending the transition a real challenge for them. To avoid getting burned out wide, the Bruins D-core has a habit of giving up the line and providing a bigger gap. That's opened up all kinds of opportunities for teams to feast on them by going east-west once they gain the line. Mix that with a forward group that just doesn't seem to have a lot of scoring depth and some contract distractions to start the season, Boston seems like a team that is perpetually trying to catch up. Now, whether or not firing their coach is the right decision, it kind of seems like it's a personnel issue at this point. Their mediocre performance so far has them on the cusp of being losers. But like I said, they're still hanging on to a playoff spot. This coaching change may provide a spark, but we're going to move on. Now let's go to our number 4 winner spot, and that is going to be the Washington Capitals. If we're being honest, I don't think anyone expected the Caps to be this good this season. and of course, for Ovi to find the fountain of youth. Now, we did an in-depth video specifically on the nuances of Ovi's game on this channel, which I'll link in the description. But what has stood out to me the most is the Capitals' forecheck and overall relentlessness. They play a standard 1-2-2 forecheck, which is nothing flashy, but it has ignited the grade 8. Unfortunately, the Russian machine is no longer spring chicken, and he can't be the guy barging in as the F1 laying the body, but he's still thriving as a trigger man in the F2 and F3 spot. With his line mates in Protas and Strome being able to use their speed and win battles along the wall, Ovi is getting the puck in great spots. Washington as a whole has benefited offensively from this cohesion, and it's why a guy like Connor McMichael is turning into McDavid as he's on fire as well. Now, the scary news was that Ovechkin got hurt this week. As of right now, he's week to week with the injury, and of course, goddammit, it has to be when he's chasing Waino for the record. But as we all know, the Russian machine never breaks. I'm sure it won't be too long before we see Ovi back on the ice, but man, was he on a heater. The exact opposite goes for our real loser number 4, and that's the Detroit Red Wings. If you want to talk about a team that had heavy expectations to make or challenge for that last wild card spot, the Red Wings were right in the mix. However, the Yzer plan is a complete joke right now. Why? Well, brutal 5-on-5 play and a god-awful PK. Looking at their expected goals per 60 when even strength, they are dead last in the league. To explain that in non-nerd talk, it basically just means they are really bad at creating quality shots or offense at even strength. A big reason for this is because they're struggling to create any sort of offense off the rush. You hope that changes with the talent they have in Patrick Kane, Dylan Larkin, DeBrincat, and Tarasenko. The list goes on, but so far, their offensive output has been a letdown. Then you have their PK, which is tied for dead last in the league. And it all starts with the entry. They run a relatively passive 1-3 in these situations, so any entry with enough speed can beat that first checker and dish it off the wall for potential 2-on-1 attack. Teams right now are blowing by that first checker, and because they can't slow the puck carrier down, it puts a lot of pressure on the wall or the D standing on the blue line to try and stuff that entry with the speed differential. So, entries are no bueno, and their structure in the zone isn't great either. They run a wedge +1, which can be very effective if done correctly, as we saw the Oilers use it in their cup run. But basically, in this formation, there's a triangle shape in the slot, while the fourth player sweeps the area above the top of the circles. That player is crucial for forcing the play to one side of the ice. Now, the disadvantage to a system like this is if the pressure isn't quick and all 4 killers aren't cohesive in their aggression, one pass to beat that forward leaves a man up high wide open on the other side of the ice. Right now, if teams aren't scoring on the entry, they're setting up and picking apart the Red Wings from this spot. Being near the basement of the league when they're supposed to be contending for that last wild card spot has a lot of people doubting the Yzer plan, and I don't blame them. Now, moving on to the number 3 spot, our winner here is going to be the New Jersey Devils. Everyone had them picked to be way better this season, and with the addition of Coach Sheldon Keefe behind the bench, he's done a solid job so far letting the Devils' best players cook offensively while having them be more responsible defensively. According to Mike Kelly on X, the Devils are dumping it in 55% of the time on their entries this season. That is up 10% from last. Why? Well, risk management. Last season, their turnover rate in the neutral zone was 27th in the league. This year, it's 7th. They're playing a bit more conservative in the neutral zone by dumping it in and avoiding a costly turnover for a rush chance against. That's part of the reason why they rank 7th in the NHL for goals against and hold one of the league's best goal differentials. Yet they're still letting their top dogs like Hughes and Ratatouille cook off the rush. The goal for them and their coaching staff is balance in how they create offense. Because come playoff time, scoring goals off the rush gets way harder, and you just have to find greasier ways to put the puck in the net. Luckily for the Devils, they lead the league in goals off the forecheck with 11. Sustain that balance on the attack with the weapons that they have on that team, they will stay in the winners column for a long time. I can't say the same for the absolutely miserable Pittsburgh Penguins taking over the number 3 loser spot so far. This team definitely wasn't expected to be a contender, but maybe, just maybe, they could be competitive enough to make the playoffs one last time with Sidney Crosby. But they have been a major disappointment early this season, to the point where GM Kyle Dubas is saying, F it, everyone's on the table except for Sid. Now, no one in the league has let in more goals than the Pittsburgh Penguins. Averaging almost 4 goals against per game is insane. And when I watch them, the best explanation that I've seen from what's wrong is from Jack Hahn on X. Going back to Pittsburgh's 2016-2017 Cup runs, the Penguins' game plan was to stretch the ice, play the puck up quickly, and allow their skilled players to make the difference. Now, whenever a stretch play fails, they can't recover fast enough defensively. Because of that, Pittsburgh is in an uncomfortable position of having to either A, dial back on their stretch plays, or B, play more conservative when they lose the puck. Doing either is going to affect your shot differential and expected goals because you're naturally putting less pressure on your opponents and giving them more time and space. Whenever Pittsburgh tries to play it safe, they look passive and ineffective. On offense, the Penguins have to be near perfect with their transition or they're immediately getting torched on the rush chance against. All this points towards the Penguins being too old and too damn slow. Mike Sullivan is a great coach, but maybe his time with the team and core has passed. At least that's what some fans are screaming from the sidelines. But then again, the construction of this roster may fail regardless of who's behind the bench. Another disappointing start has them on the loser list early this season. And I can't believe we're going on the third straight year where we might not see Sid the middle-aged man in the playoffs. My God, that is depressing, but not for the people of Minnesota. Because in our winner number 2 slot is the Minnesota Wild. The team who have perpetually been mid have come out of nowhere this season and have been a pleasant surprise. A major reason is Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov. He is having an MVP caliber year, but we got to highlight the other part of the equation in Matt Zuccarello. The Zook and Kaprizov connection is absurd, and it doesn't get much love because it's out in Minnesota. But these two have a special connection that allows them to dominate the pace of the game on offense. I love this play here with Kaprizov on the regroup in his own zone, and then he's going to find Zuccarello on the outlet. Kaprizov, being the world-class skater he is, takes off while Zuccarello draws back in to suck in the Tampa defenders. He hits him with a quick pass back, and now Kaprizov has possession and a massive speed differential entering the zone. The poor schlep on defense is caught in no man's land. Kaprizov sells the shot and then slips it over for a nifty pass and a goal. You'll notice that Kaprizov's game, especially with Zuccarello, is all about timing and finding defenders' blind spots. On this play alone, he's constantly finding that soft spot in Florida's coverage. As soon as he defers to Zook, he hits the only pocket of space available between these two checks. And that's the benefit of chemistry in hockey. These two know when and where each other are going to be, and it creates a chaotic mess for defenses to cover. Speaking of defense, the combination of defensive pairings between Brodin, Spurgeon, and Faber are among the best in the league for expected goals percentage. All three are tremendous skaters who can move the puck and close the gaps quickly to create a turnover at the blue line. Their mobility allows Minnesota to effortlessly have a defender jump in on the rush and be dynamic on the attack. The result is a team that is incredibly hard to keep up with and contain for a full 60 minutes. That is something I definitely cannot say for our team in the number 2 loser spot, and that is the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal wasn't supposed to make the playoffs or anything, but their young core had fans expecting that they'd take a step. And so far, they have been a gigantic mess, specifically on the defensive side of the puck. Ranking 30th in goals against, there's been a lot of noise surrounding about whether or not they should change their D-zone structure as a rebuilding team. Andrew Brewer had a great piece of this on Sportsnet, but basically, the Habs play a hybrid system. They play a zone coverage down low and then switch to a man-on-man up high. The idea is that it can be the hardest system in the NHL to generate offense against, as 4 of the past 5 Stanley Cup champions have used this exact system. Hybrid is the perfect mix between structure and pressure when done right. But the Habs are a young group and they're struggling. Here the puck goes high, which means that Montreal's Joel Armia should pick up that Montreal is playing man-on-man. But he's late to his guy, creating a huge gap advantage for the other team, and that forces David Savard to leave his current check and switch to that man. In the end, no one ends up picking up the goal scorer. And when you got a young team like the Habs playing man-on-man and trying to pick up all of these split-second switches against all these motion offenses, it can be extremely difficult. Switching to a straight zone coverage would simplify the game for Montreal's young core, as they can sit tighter in the slot and protect the house without having to go man-on-man with the other team's most talented players. But Coach Martin St-Louis has made it a point to say that this is how the team wants to play when they're competitive. So, the learning process and growing pains must continue for them to have future success. Aside from Cole Caulfield lighting it up early in the season, it's been an ugly time to be a Montreal Canadiens fan. Now, finally, before we hop into our number one spots, a couple of honorable mentions. The Florida Panthers are still beasts, and as the defending Cup champs, they could easily be considered winners. I mean, come on. But right now, they're right where we all expected them. So they don't make the list, maybe for the next video. And for the losers, I mean, take your pick. Could be the Sens, Sabres, Ducks, Sharks, Blackhawks, but we either expected those teams to be mid or flat out bad. One team who has completely fallen short of expectations and is the number one loser so far this season has to be the Nashville Predators. $108 million committed in the offseason, only for them to fall flat on their face and so far be in the basement of the league. Their advanced numbers suggest that they're getting a bit unlucky. However, tiny mental mistakes have been killing this team at crucial moments. You can check out our full breakdown on our channel on the Preds, but despite dominating in all three zones, mistimed reads and a lack of communication have been a massive problem for them. Whether it's being a second behind on a pinch or not recovering properly in their D-zone coverage, they have fallen well short of expectations so far this season. So much so, it's got GM Barry Trotz threatening rebuilds, and it's just been a complete mess. Things may turn around for the Preds, but for now, they are in the number one loser spot so far this season. Now, let's end it off on a positive note, and a team that shocked everyone and made history so far in this young season is our number one winner in the Winnipeg Jets. As a whole, there isn't a team playing a more complete game than the Jets right now. With a forecheck that strongly mirrors that of the Panthers and has all five of players attacking in cohesion, they are suffocating to play against. Not to mention, that hybrid system we talked about with Montreal is used by the Jets, and their execution allows them to force turnovers and create quality rush chances. Combine that with Connor Hellebuyck playing like a man possessed and the number one power play in the NHL, you got a team that has had an historic 15-1 start to the season. Now, although they're the undisputed winners early so far, no one really cares until they do something in the playoffs. So, who are your winners and losers so far this season? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you want to see us continue this series, either monthly or bi-weekly, whatever the hell it is, drop a comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and check out some of our past breakdowns either in the description or on screen here.